I promised you a poem, so here is a poem. This is my favorite, and it has been for about 15 years or so. It's probably due to be replaced by something else, but it's a poem about pain and suffering and absence and beauty and kindness and all kinds of things. It's a long and rambling poem, but I found a lot of richness in it at very painful moments in my life in the last couple of decades. So, anyway, uh, this is from Robert Haas's book, Sun Under Wood, which was published in 1996. And the poem is called Regalia for a Black Hat Dancer. In the morning, after running along the river, creek stones practice the mild yoga of becoming smooth. By afternoon, I was thinking, once you're smooth, you're dead. It is good sometimes that poetry should disenchant us, I wrote, and something about the heart's huge vacancy, which seemed contemptible. After dinner, sudden cooling of the summer air, I sat down to it. Where? Walking down to Heart's Desire Beach in the summer evenings of the year my marriage ended. Though I was hollowed out by pain, honeycombed with the emptiness of it, like the bird bones on the beach the salt of the bay water had worked on for a season, such surprising lightness in the hand. I don't think I could have told the pain of loss from the pain of possibility, though I knew they weren't the same thing. When I think of that time, I think mainly of the osprey's cry, a startled yelp, the cry more a color than a sound, and as if it ripped the sky, was white, as if it were scar tissue and fresh hurt at once. Toyon, old oak, and coffee berry. Always about halfway, but especially if the day had been hot, the scent of vanilla grass. My throat so swollen with some unsortable mix of sorrow and desire I couldn't swallow. Salt smell, gray water, sometimes the fog came in, rolling down the dragon back of pines. Often there was one blue heron in the tidal pond. And I'd present my emptiness, which was huge, baffled. Rilke writing in French because there was no German equivalent for l'absence in the great positive sense with which it appeared in Valéry. One of my minor occupations was raging against Rilke. And most of the time, I felt nothing. When the moment came that was supposed to embody presence, nothing really. There were a few buffleheads, as usual, a few gulls rocking in the surf. Sometimes a western grebe diving and swimming with its crazed red eye. So there were these two emptinesses, one made of pain and desire, and one made of vacancy. Paused for a moment in this writing and went out. Dark, first the dark, wind in the trees, everybody's private pain. In Korea once, in a mountain pass, a carved placatory shrine, a figure of a couple copulating, and underneath in Hangul, we beget joy, we beget suffering. It made you want to say a prayer, to conjure prayer. Lost everything. This is the night. It doesn't love me, or not. Shadow of a hawk, then shadow of a hawk, going down at about the speed of a second hand. I thought of my mother ending her days in a hotel room, scarcely able to breathe. I'm doing fine except for the asthma. It's emphysema, Mom. We used to call it asthma. Anyway, I'm just lucky I have my health. Of my brother in the psych ward at San Francisco General, his ward mate, an 8 months pregnant girl coming down like him from crack. When they were let out to smoke in a courtyard, some guy from another ward 4 stories up was pounding on the window. She thought he was trying to get her attention. A sly, pleased smile, gap in her bad front teeth, and said to me coyly, "Fatal attraction." When he got the window open, it turned out he wanted the orderly, also smoking. He needed insulin. My brother on crack, spoken with a stutter. The really crazy Jones lasts about 2 hours, and when you come down, you really, really come down. You got nothing left but the lint in your pockets. Emptinesses. One is desire, another is the object it doesn't have. Everything real, nourished in the space between these things. There ought to be some single word for the misery of divorce. What is the rhythm of that line? Oh, I see, 4 and 3, Emily's line. There ought to be some single word for the misery of divorce. It dines upon you casually, da 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 da, fierce, remorse, pierce. In Berkeley, over dinner in a restaurant on a Friday night, I noticed that it was full of fathers with daughters, mothers with sons. Some of them people I knew or recognized. The manager of the bookstore, the woman who sold antiques. These were the stunned, out of the house, non-cooking parents in their new apartments who had the children weekends, while their mates, resuming the unaccustomed ritual of dating, were out with a new lover. Children, I guess, make of this what they have to. I looked around. Kids staring at their plates, parents studying them anxiously, saying, "So how was school?" The whole theater of the real. Sadness, which seems infinite. Cruelty, which seems infinite. The cheerful one-armed guy in the bakery mornings. He puts his croissant between his teeth and pours himself some coffee. Someone on the phone trying to get me to pay my brother's rent. I got too big a heart. I try to run a clean place. The first floor reserved for transvestite hookers wobbling on spiked heels. And who would deny their clients the secret exhaustion of their dreams? The whole botched world. That funny phrase I'd heard yesterday. Someone talking about a failing baseball team. They really screw the pooch. And the pelicans that settled in the cove in the late midsummer dusk. Preposterous creatures, they seemed companionable, finding each other as the dark came on. I would go home, make tea, call my children. Some piece of writing that I'd started would seem possible. Odd how families live in houses. At first, a lot marked out with string, then levels, rooms that lifted off the ground, arrange it, and then inside that intricate dance of need and habit and routine. Children's crayon drawings on the wall, messages on the refrigerator, or altars for the household gods. At night, the dreaming bodies, little gene pool echoes passing back and forth among them, earlobe, the lap of an eyelid, and the dreams. Under sorrow, what? I'd think. Under the animal sense of loss? Climbing in Korea, months later, coming to the cave of the Sakaram Buddha, a view down a forested ravine to the Sea of Japan, perhaps a glimpse, the closed eyelids. You'd have to make a gesture with your hand to get the fineness of the gesture in the stone hands resting on the thighs, open, utterly composed. Cool inside. The stone, though there was no lighting, seemed to glow. It seemed I could leave every internal fury there and walk away. In the calm, I felt like a wind-up monkey, like I had always been a wind-up monkey, and that if I knew the gesture, going outside, picking the petals of the wildflowers, there was something like a thimbleberry bush. Everything was like something I knew, on the path from the monastery, so I seemed to be walking in a parallel universe, peopled by unfamiliar birdsong, and ancient trail dust, and the forest-dappled light, papery flowers, very plain ancestor of the garden rose, another elaboration of desire, of a startling magenta blue. I thought I might pick them, bring them in, and drop them before the Buddha, the carved massive stone, Also thought I could leave my wedding ring, and didn't do it. In the months we were apart, I had endless fantasies about when I'd finally take it off and how. And then one day, I was moving, lugging cardboard boxes. I looked down, and it wasn't there. I looked in the grass of the driveway strip. Sow bugs, an earwig. So strange. This was a time when, in the universities, everyone was reading Derrida, who'd set out to write a dissertation about time. He read Heidegger, Husserl, Kant, Augustine, and found that there was no place to stand from. There was no ground. It was language, the scandal of nothingness, put cheerfully to work by my colleagues to dismantle regnant ideologies. It was a time when, a few miles away, kids were starting to kill each other in wars over turf for selling drugs. Schizophrenics with matted hair, dazed eyes, festering feet, always engaged in some furious volleying inner dialogue they neglected, unlike the rest of us, to hide, were beginning to fill the streets, de-institutionalized in someone's idea of reform. And I was searching in the rosebed of a rented house inch by inch, looking under the car seat where the paper clips and Roosevelt dimes and unresolved scum shapes of once vegetal stuff accumulate in abject little villages where matter hides while it transforms itself. Nothing there. I never found it. Looking at old frescoes from medieval churches in the cloisters once, I wondered if, all over Europe, there were not corresponding vacancies, sheer blanks where pietas and martyrdoms of Santa Lucia and crowing cocks rising to announce the dawn in which St. Peter had betrayed his Lord in sandstone and basalt and carnelian marble once had been. This emptiness felt like that. Under the hosannas and the terror of the plague and the crowning of the Virgin in the spring, I didn't leave my ring. Apparently, I was supposed to wait until it disappeared. I didn't know what else exactly I could leave. In Seoul, in Myeongdong, in a teeming alley, there was a restaurant where the fish was so fresh they let you know it by beginning each meal with a small serving of the tips of the tentacles of octopus, just cut, writhing on a plate. In the latticed entrance, perch glowing like pearls in the lamplight thrown from doorways as they circulated, wide-eyed and moody. In the tanks, coppery lobsters scuttling over lobsters, squid like the looseness in a dream. Had been at a meeting all day on the conditions of imprisoned writers, this one without paper and pen for several years, this one with blood in his urine. In small cells all over the world, I found myself thinking, walking through the marketplace, apple pears and nectarines in great piles, wavery under swinging lamps as if you could sell the sunrise. Torturers, upholding the order of the state. Under screams, order. And under that, it must be the torturer's nightmare. Nothing. Smoothness of the stone at Sokoram. The way the contours flowing were weightless and massive at once. I said to myself there was kindness in the Buddha's hands, but there wasn't kindness in the hands. They made the idea of kindness seem not a delusion exactly or a joke. They smoothed the idea away the way you'd stroke a nervous or frightened dog. Outside again, rubbing my eyes, deep night, brilliant stars. I never thought I'd write about this subject, was tired of subjects. Mallarmé on music. The great thing is it can resolve an argument without ever stating the terms. But I thought I'd ride this rhythm out. This somewhat tired, subdued voice, like Landor's Carlino perhaps, a poet guide, and see where it was going. Around that time, find the neutral distance in which to say this, a woman came into my life. What I felt was delight. When she came into the room, I smiled. The gift was that there didn't need to be passionate yearning across distances. One night, before or after Sokoram, when we had made love, desperate kissings, wells of laughter, in a monkish apartment on the wooden floor, we went outside, naked, in the middle of the night. There must have been a full moon. There was a thick old shadowy deodar cedar by my door, and the cones were glowing, lustrously glowing, and we thought, both of us, our happiness had lit the tree up. The word that occurs to me is droll. It was sublimely droll. The way we were as free as children playing hide and seek. Her talk, raffish, funny, unexpected, sometimes wise, darkened, the way a black thing is scintillant in light, by irony. The way neither of us needed to hold back, think before we spoke, lie, tiptoe carefully around a given subject, or brace ourselves to say hard truth. It felt to me hilarious, and hilarity, spring water gushing up from some muse's font of crystal in old poems, seemed a form of emptiness. Look, Rilke in the sonnets, I last but a minute, I walk on nothing. Coming and going, I do this dance in air. At night, when we had got too tired to talk, were touching all along our bodies, nodding off, I'd fall asleep smiling. Mornings, for how long, I'd wake in pain, physical pain, fluid. It moved through my body like grass fire spreading on a hill, opposite of touching. I'd think of my wife, her lover, some moment in our children's lives, the gleam of old wood on a Welsh cabinet we'd agonized over buying, put against one wall, then another, till it found its place. This old word, riding, that we made, its customs, villages, domains, would torture me a while. If she were there, rare mornings that she was, we did a lot of car keys, hurried dressing, last kisses on swollen lips at 2 a.m. I'd turn to her, stare at her sleeping face, and want to laugh from happiness. I'd even think, 10 years from now, we could be screaming at each other in a kitchen and want to laugh. My legs and chest still felt as if someone had been beating them with sticks. I could hardly move. I'd quote Vallejo to myself, golpes como del odio de Dios. I'd stare at the ceiling, bewildered, and feel a grief so old it could have been some beggar woman in a fairy tale. I didn't know you could lie down in such swift, opposing currents. Also two emptinesses, I suppose. The one joy comes from, the one regret, disfigured intention, the longing to be safe or whole flows into when it's disappearing. I'd gone out of the cave, looked at the scaled brightness of the sea 10 miles away, looked at unfamiliar plants. During the war, a botanist in Pusan had told me a number of native species had gone extinct. People in the countryside boiled anything that grew to make a soup. We had spring hunger, he said, like medieval peasants. There's even a word for it in ancient Korean. Back inside, in the cool darkness carved with bodhisattvas, I presented myself once more for some revelation. Nothing. Great calm, flowing stone. No sorrow. No not sorrow. Lotuses carved in the pediment, simple, fleshy, open. Private pain is easy, in a way. It doesn't go away, but you can teach yourself to see its size. Invent a ritual. Walk up a mountain in the afternoon, gather up pine twigs, light a fire, then smoke, not an ambitious fire, and sit before it and watch until it burns to ash and the last gleam is gone from it and the dark falls. Then you get up, brush yourself off, and walk back to the world. If you're lucky, you're hungry. In the town center of Gwangju, there was a late October market fair. Some guy was barbecuing halves of baby chicks on the long, sooty contraption of a grill, slathering them with soy sauce. Baby chicks. Corn pancakes stuffed with leeks and garlic. Some milky, violent, sweet Korean barley wine or beer. Families strolling. Booths hawking calculators, socks, dolls to ward off evil, and computer games. Everywhere, of course, it was Korea. People arguing politics, red-faced, women serving men. I thought in this flesh and charcoal-scented heavy air of the Buddha in his cave, tired as if from making love or riding through the night. Was I going to eat a baby chick? 2 pancakes, a clay mug of the beer. Sat down under an umbrella and looked to see, among the diners feasting, quarreling about their riven country, if you were supposed to eat the bones. You were. I did.